everyone, thanks for joining me today. Welcome to part one of my birthing experience during lockdown. So I'm going to talk to you in this video about what it's really like to give birth in the hospital during a national lockdown of the current pandemic that we're living through. So for my first video I wanted to do a little diary about what it was like to give birth during the first lockdown. At the moment numbers are increasing, so we're seeing a lot more positive results every day. There's a lot more hospital admissions every day and there's a lot more deaths happening, so we're starting to creep into that second peak now. They're calling it the second wave, aren't they? So I know for a lot of mums to be out there who are due to give birth over the next coming months are probably starting to get quite nervous about what it might all mean for them. So I'll talk about my experience. Of course it's based on the hospital trust that I'm in, so do bear that in mind when you're listening to this information, because different hospital trusts have different policies, so it's really important that you check with your midwife about what services will be available for you at the time that you're going to give birth. One of the key things I would say as well is don't be afraid to ask difficult questions. Remember at this point the midwives and the services, they've all had to deal with the first lockdown and all of those births that have happened, and there's been thousands and thousands of them, hasn't there? So they're quite experienced by this point about what can happen, what can't happen, what might be available, what might not be available. So it's just worth checking with them. They've got so much information to hand, so I would really recommend doing that. So for me, my birthing story, how did it all go? So I was really lucky in the sense that my birth went really smoothly. I didn't have any problems. It was all kind of textbook in a sense. So the biggest thing for me was at my 36-week appointment, when we were going through our birthing preferences, I had to go to that appointment on my own. So what I did for that was phone my husband into the appointment. So I'd really recommend doing that for any midwife appointments that you have to attend on your own, where you think you're going to be given information that's important. Don't be afraid to phone someone so that they can listen in to you getting that information. So for me, I'm quite a forgetful person anyway, so I felt like if I didn't phone him in, I'd forget something that the midwife was telling me. So I would really recommend doing that. Your midwife shouldn't have a problem with it. If they do have a problem with it, then I think it's a case of just insist on it, because at the end of the day, it's your pregnancy, it's your birth, and you have to be comfortable with things that are happening, and they're there for you, not the other way around. So just try and remember that. So I phoned my husband in, and that was really good. So in terms of going through your birthing preferences, I'd really recommend starting with that, because that way you're not feeling under so much pressure to have to remember all of the information that the midwives are giving you. You don't have to write things down so that you're not forgetting them. You can feel a bit more confident in the information that you've been provided. So once I had done that, I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted. So my preferences appointment was a fairly quick appointment. So normally they would last for an hour, but this lasted for about 40 minutes. What I would say with that is do your research before you go. So I looked online for as much information as I could about different places that you could give birth, different things that could happen during birth, and depending on what things might happen, what then would be the next steps, and from that start to work what would I be comfortable with and what wouldn't I be comfortable with. I also started to write questions down as I was reading up on things of, oh, I need to check on that, what does that mean, why would that happen, and from that I had some really good questions to ask my midwife. Most of them were difficult questions of the what if something bad was to happen, and for me, it wasn't that I was thinking that something bad was going to happen. I wasn't trying to have a negative mindset from the beginning. I just like to be fully prepared with all the information so that if something was to happen, I have a bit more information, I'm armed with knowledge, so that I'm a bit more prepared, so then it's not quite as scary, because once you're actually in labour, you are so focused on that one thing, everything else that's going on around you can just be a bit blurry. So for me, just knowing information beforehand just made me actually feel more comfortable and confident in going ahead with the labour. The day that I went into labour, I was 41 weeks exactly, so I was exactly 1 week over. I had a midwife appointment that morning, with it being my first pregnancy, so that they could just check how things were going. I had planned to have a sweep that day, but then I woke up in the night with some pains and thought, oh, haven't really felt these before, I wonder if this could be. Took some paracetamol, went back to sleep, told the midwife about it, had been having pains all morning before I went to see her, so let her know that and said I think that might be an early labour. So I was going to ask for a sweep, but I think maybe just wait and see what happens. My midwife was really happy to do that as well, so what she said to me was if I hadn't had the baby overnight, she can check on the system, and if I hadn't had the baby, then she would arrange to come to my house the following morning and do the sweep at home. So one thing that you might want to ask your midwife is if a similar situation was to happen for you, might they be able to come to your house to do the sweep, especially with infection rates increasing at the moment. It's good to know whether they're able to offer that for you in your area. So hopefully in the hospital trust that I'm a part of, that's still something that they will offer for you, fingers crossed. So my pain started progressing throughout the day. I got in touch with one of my really good friends about it, and she was starting to get really excited, and she gave me a few tips of what to do just in case labour was happening. So the main things that she said was get bouncing on my pregnancy ball, get the lavender oil going, get the clary sage oil going, just keep getting gravity essentially. Use gravity as much as you can to really help you. And so I started doing all of these things. My pregnancy ball was just a normal exercise ball. You can pick them up pretty cheaply, so I got mine from Argos. You don't have to spend loads of money. I know if you search on Amazon, for example, you can buy specific pregnancy balls, but they're so expensive and they are no different to a normal exercise ball. So something cheap and cheerful, that's all you need, I think. So I kept bouncing on my pregnancy ball as much as I could. I kept walking around, moving as much as I could, standing, just as much as I could try and use gravity. That's what I would do. I was keeping myself well topped up with paracetamol, so I was making a note of when I was taking it, and then every 4 hours on the dot I was having more. So again, I would recommend doing that, just because it takes the edge off in the early stages. And I think with a second wave on its way, and probably that you might be feeling a bit more nervous about giving birth, especially if you're going to be giving birth in a hospital. You want to try and stay at home for as long as you can. So you want to just try and do as many different things as you can to keep yourself nice and calm and relaxed, and just anything that can take the edge away from the pains that you'll start to feel. So in the morning it was alright. I think it was just like having quite bad period pains, so that's quite manageable on its own. I didn't really need to have the paracetamol at that point. I just knew that if I had the paracetamol in my system from the get-go, that for me, on a psychological level, that would be a lot more helpful. It wasn't necessarily that I physically needed that pain to be eased at that point. It was just, I know if I'm taking that, I'm feeling better, I'm not feeling as much pain, and if I'm not feeling as much pain, I'm more relaxed, and if I'm more relaxed, that's going to be producing all of the right kind of hormones that's going to help progress my labour nicely. So I'd recommend trying to do that as well if you can. The clary sage oil, I would say it's something that it's quite a particular smell, so don't wait until you're going into labour to use it. Definitely make sure that it's something that you like the smell of first. It isn't for everyone, so it's quite a natural woody kind of smell, so please check it out first, because the last thing that you want is to like splatter it everywhere and then you're in labour and you hate the smell and then you're stressed out, because it's going to be counterproductive to the whole thing. But for me, I really like the smell of it, so again, I just felt that aromatherapy was helping. I didn't use the lavender oil straight away, because with lavender oil being quite relaxing, you just want to make sure that you're already progressing at a certain point. If you start using it too early, I think what happens, it can just relax you too much, and then that can slow things down, so then it's kind of doing the opposite effect of what you actually want it to do. So by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was starting to feel like I was in quite a bit of pain and starting to feel like I might need to go to the hospital now. So what we did was phone up the hospital ward in the area that I live, and I was speaking to the midwife on the phone. So what she said, she was asking some questions, and whilst I was having contractions, I was still able to answer these questions. I can't remember exactly what she was asking now, but I think there's certain things that they need to ask and check, so that they can try and work out if you are actually in labour or not, and whether they should recommend for you to come into the hospital. So after having this conversation with her, she then very, very kindly said, because you're still able to answer the questions whilst you're in contraction, I think you should try and stay at home for longer, because it's suggesting to me that you're still actually in very early stages of your labour. So what I don't want to do is you come in and then you're not far enough along and we've got to send you back home. So with that as well, during the lockdown, there was also a policy that your birthing partner can only come in once you're in active labour. So that's once you're 4 centimetres dilated or more. The midwives will try and do as much as they can to help you get to that point before you're coming into the hospital, so that you're able to have your partner with you, just so then you're not having to do any part of the hospital element on your own, because it probably wouldn't be very nice. So what she advised me was run myself a nice bath and just try and stay relaxed and just see if that helps to take away some of the pain. So that's what I did. I think part of what was happening at the time is that I was starting to feel quite nervous. So by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the realisation that I was actually having a baby was setting in, and that's quite an overwhelming feeling. You suddenly feel so nervous, and even though you're really, really excited that you're finally going to be seeing your baby after all this time, it's just such an overwhelming sensation of this is happening, I'm going through this, I've been talking about this for a while, I've been trying to not think about it for the first few months, but I'm actually going through labour now. Oh my god, what am I going to do? So it's quite a weird thing. So I think once I had the bath, I felt a bit better, and I stayed in the bath for quite a while, and it was nice and relaxing. It just helped to keep everything just not so tense, and for me, I was wanting to have a water birth, so I think that really helped as well. I was like, you know what, yeah, I think being in the water is just taking away some of that pain, so I would recommend trying to have a water birth as well if you can. I don't know if it'll be available or not, but it's always worth asking and finding out if you're able to have it. I would definitely have a water birth again if I have any children in the future. Thanks so much for watching my video today. I hope that you really enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe button. I'll be posting the next video in the coming days, so please stay tuned for parts 2 and 3 of my birthing experience during lockdown. Thanks so much everyone, bye now!